Hi, everyone. As we get closer to Holy Week, I wanted to give you a little bit more guidance on some of the adaptations that we're being called to make as we prepare for our Triduum celebrations. By now, you will have received this document that I'm putting up on the screen right now. This is something that the Liturgical Commission and I worked on to put together, and it provides some integration of the Vatican's instructions for adaptations that we need to make for our Holy Week celebrations. And I thought I'd offer a little bit of commentary now, especially thinking about some of the parameters of music ministry and maybe some of the preparation that might need to happen, about what that might look like, or some things that you can omit, or things that might still need to be there. So you notice that the way it's set up is that it includes a variety of quotes from the Vatican, and then I try to integrate that a little bit with the Roman Missal instruction. First of all, you'll notice that that the Vatican gives a statement on what it means for the participation of the faithful during the Triduum when gathering in person is not possible. And I guess their big emphasis in this paragraph is that when liturgies are broadcast, that they're done in a live manner and that they are not recorded. Um, and then that the faithful are encouraged to unite themselves to that broadcast, or if a broadcast is not possible, to simply unite themselves in prayer, knowing when that celebration is taking place. I think one key thing to be reminded of is that it is not a requirement that every parish does a live stream of their Holy Week celebrations. I got a concern from, for example, from a parish where the person who's in charge of music said they really don't feel comfortable going into public and participating in ministry right now. And that their parish was concerned that they would have the capacity to pull off a live stream. And that's totally okay. If your parish decides that it's not able to do it well, um, you can refer your parishioners to tune in with the bishop's liturgies, which will be posted on the diocesan website, and to pray with the bishop in that context, or to participate in a different spiritual way. You'll notice on the liturgy resources page that there's some resources for walking through what some of that participation might look like. The most common one being to pray the Liturgy of the Hours. You'll notice that there's a wealth of resources, especially from liturgical LTP, liturgical training publications, to help with that participation. So just note that if you do plan to live stream, be sure to submit your live stream times and streaming link to me. We need to get that out. The deadline is actually going to be, to get the schedule published, the initial one is going to be Wednesday, April 1st is the deadline. So that's coming up. Also, there's been a number of questions about best practices for if someone is new to live streaming, about what that looks like and how you might be able to actually do that. And I'll refer you to NPM has two helpful guidelines. One that's basically a collection of links to other websites, which gives some insight about equipment and tools that you might be able to use to have a successful live streaming experience. And then one to perhaps remind your presiders to check out Father Ricky Manala's 9 pastoral reflection points on the live streaming of Mass. It is a different experience when someone is celebrating the Mass into a camera, when there is not an assembly, and when he's otherwise might be basically in private. And so this gives a little bit of advice that I found helpful for how to still maintain a pastoral presence to all those who might be tuning in from afar, even when you might feel like you're very alone in that moment. And again, it's not a requirement. I just want to say it again, for every parish to live stream their liturgy. The Vatican was very clear in saying that while the priests of the parish should, to the extent that it is possible, celebrate these holy liturgies during Holy Week in private, that if it's not possible to broadcast that, that's okay. We do have other ways for the faithful to be able to engage whether through a different live stream or, as I said, through praying the Liturgy of the Hours. A couple of considerations to keep in mind. Let's look at the Vatican instructions for Palm Sunday. You'll notice that for parishes, that the instruction from the Vatican is that the third form of the entrance for Palm Sunday is to be used, and that third form is found in the Roman Missal. Basically, it's called a simple entrance, where the presider simply proceeds to the altar in a regular procession as a song is sung. And then he greets the people, reads the entrance antiphon printed in the Roman Missal, and continues the Mass in the usual way. What that means for music ministers is that there is not going to be an extended palm celebration or a blessing of the palms at the beginning. Rather, it'll just be, if you're providing music for a live stream, it'll just be a simple entrance song. This should still commemorate the entrance of Jesus into Jerusalem, but it does not have to be particularly lengthy, and there shouldn't be any other special procession or blessing taking place. The Roman Missal notes that the penitential act is only able to be omitted when using the first two forms of the entrance. So therefore, because we're using form 3, you will include a penitential act. It's required. And then there's some instruction here about the palm order. Basically, presiders are asked to, or priests of the parish are asked to bless their palms if they're not able to cancel their order outside of the Mass, and to leave them in a safe place until they could be distributed at a later time, or simply dried out and later burned to make ashes for future use. Other than that, the rest of the Palm Sunday Mass is unchanged. Looking at the Vatican instruction for Holy Thursday, a couple of things to note. First is that commonly at the beginning of the Holy Thursday celebration, there's a procession and presentation of the blessed holy oils that had been blessed by the bishop at the Chrism Mass, which usually in our diocese happens on the Tuesday before the Holy Thursday celebration. Part of their social distancing requirements are that we can't be within 6 feet of each other. And so the notion of having somebody processing holy oils into the church and handing them off to the presider simply is not possible. So the adaptation that is listed here is basically to have a table set up with the oils prepared in advance and on that table. And once the liturgy begins, to make a brief statement of just explaining that the oils are there and where they came from, and then to bless those oils and then state that they'll be reposed at the end of the liturgy. Normally there's a song that is sung along with the procession of the holy oils, but it doesn't really make sense to have that song in this case, because there isn't a procession to which the song accompanies. So that song can be omitted and simply begin with the presider offering the spoken blessing. And if you need that link, just check out this hyperlink here to visit that. If for some reason the receiving of the oils and blessing of the oils just is impossible for your parish, given some other consideration, the USCCB does grant provision to receive and bless the oils on a different day. So if it doesn't work out for your parish, then you can eliminate the reception of oils until a later date. That's really going to depend on your parish as you proceed. And the washing of the feet is omitted, so there will not be any music to accompany that. And then at the end of the Mass, we're very used to the Blessed Sacrament being processed formally and placed into a place of repose and prayed over for some time. The Vatican is instructed that will not happen this year, that instead of that special procession, that the Blessed Sacrament will simply be carried back to the tabernacle, just as you would see the body of Christ being placed in the tabernacle at the end of a regular Sunday liturgy. After that, the Mass is concluded in the usual way. In Good Friday, several adaptations as well. The first one that would affect the music would be the showing of the Holy Cross, um, in which usually on the cross, there are several options in the Missal, but commonly the cross is processed through the church and gradually revealed as a call and response is sung, in which the wood of the cross is beheld. Uh, so the way that it's suggested in here is to do a modified version of the first form of the instruction in the Roman Missal. And this is because if you're on camera and you're in an empty church, walking around an empty church by yourself processing the cross, or as the presider processes the cross, doesn't really make sense. And especially if you're on camera, if you're out of the camera feed and if the faithful watching on camera can't see or hear what's going on, it doesn't really meet the needs of making it as a communal of a prayer as possible, given the circumstances. So the recommendation for preparing here is that the priest picks up a cross from off camera, but somewhere close by, and it's again not handed off by somebody else, but that it's set up in advance to maintain the social distancing of 6 feet, which is then covered with a violet veil. And rather than processing with candle bearers, which is also usually the practice, those candle bearers are omitted. Then the priest would stand in front of the entrance of the sanctuary, probably in the middle, right in front of the altar, and making sure they're on camera, say or sing, "Behold the wood of the cross," to which the response of any other person, which might be a couple people there, can be that "Come, let us adore." So music ministers, if you commonly in your parish sing rather than speak the "Behold the wood of the cross" and the response for "Come, let us adore," be ready to still do that, provided that the only change is that the priest remains stationary while revealing the cross rather than moving around the church. You'll notice that there he would stay and in the front, elevate the cross in silence for several moments, and then reveal the next part before saying the next time, "Behold," or singing, "Behold the wood of the cross." The next part for the adoration of the Holy Cross. For those who are attending or participating in the Mass in person, the very few who would be there, they're invited to adore the Holy Cross by either genuflecting or profoundly bowing while making sure that they maintain their social distancing. After that, the priest takes the cross and invites the people in a few words to adore the Holy Cross, and holds it highly elevated, or elevated to the degree that it's comfortable to do so, for a brief time to allow the faithful to adore in silence. This is really in a way to minister to all those who are watching from a screen, from somewhere else, that they have those moments of silence to be able to adore the cross from wherever they are. Usually, while the adoration of the cross takes place, there is music that is played. You might have a very short amount of instrumental music that happens as the few people present adore the cross, and then you can stop playing as the faithful are invited to adore in silence per the Roman Missal. So it probably doesn't make sense to have a whole song prepared for this moment, but probably just a refrain, something simple that includes the text "Behold the cross" would work nicely. Bob Hurd's setting called "Behold the Cross" would be a really easily adaptable setting to use, for example. It's pretty short. It can also end faster if it needs to, especially if it's being played instrumentally. And then the rest of Good Friday proceeds as is normal. Okay, so for Easter Vigil, um, this one has a couple of other changes that are important to be aware of. There is no Easter fire that will be lit or blessed. Rather, the liturgy begins inside with the priest in his place at the chair, and then you'll have to look at the Roman Missal for this, but it proceeds with number 9 of the Roman Missal right away. This is basically a gathering prayer and a gathering statement saying that we are starting our Easter Vigil together. Then he skips over number 10, which is the blessing of the Holy Fire. And then in number 11, the Paschal candle is prepared and lit. If you are responsible for helping to set up the Paschal candle, you'll notice that most candles come pre-prepared with the carving, as outlined in the Missal, and then and it'll come with 5 grains of incense to insert. Those can be easily set up on a side table established right before the liturgy starts, so that the priest can place those incense grains into the candle while saying the blessing in the Missal, and then to light the candle afterwards. If the priest is unable to manage that for some reason, if for whatever cause, if the candle is too big to handle, if there's some other mobility concern, then the candle is to be prepared and blessed before the liturgy begins, with the candle being lit during the liturgy itself. Usually after that, then the candle is processed while proclaiming that the light of Christ is present. At that time, as you likely remember, usually people in the congregation have their own candle, which the light of Christ is shared, and then the church is covered in candlelight. That is omitted this year. There is no procession. So as soon as the Paschal candle is lit, then right away the Exultet is immediately proclaimed after that. If you're wondering about lighting, think about the needs of your live stream video feed. It would be appropriate to have enough lighting present so that the video feed is able to be clearly, that people can clearly see what's going on in the video, and that it's not immersed in darkness for whatever reason. So you can have enough lights on so that the video quality is clear. For Liturgy of the Word, the Roman Missal encourages all 9 readings to be proclaimed. 7 of those readings come from the Old Testament, and 2 of those readings come from the New Testament. At the bare minimum, 3 of the 7 assigned Old Testament readings are to be proclaimed. The one that has to be included is the reading from Exodus, and that's according to the Ordo. While you can select the other Old Testament readings that are going to be proclaimed. At the cathedral, the plan is to use 5 Old Testament readings, and the bishop has instructed that each parish decide for your congregations what might seem the most appropriate. If it seems like, based on the video feed or based on the lectors or whatever reason, if doing all of the Old Testament readings just feels like way too much to do over a video stream, then you can use pastoral judgment to decide where within the range of 3 to 7 readings you'd like to do. In terms of music, the responsorial psalms are sung after each of the readings. The Easter Vigil does permit that in place of the responsorial psalm that a period of sacred silence can be observed. This isn't as ideal as being able to have the richness of the sung prayers, which are the psalms, be included. But if for some reason, if you're in these times, if it's simply not possible to have all those psalms included, it might be that your go-to cantor would not be able to participate because of social distancing. Or other resources aren't available, or maybe there's issues with the audio quality of your stream, and the psalms being sung based on the audio pickup might be more distracting than helpful. You have to use your own judgment along with your pastor in how to proceed there. But hopefully these instructions at least give you a starting place for where to go. For the parts of where usually there's the initiation of the elect into the church, there's, as you remember, there's typically a preparation of the holy water, and there's the singing of the Litany of Saints, and there's all kinds of wonderful rites that take place. A lot of that is eliminated for this year. The Vatican has instructed that only the renewal of baptismal promises is to be maintained. And our diocese, the bishop's instruction is that the full initiation of the elect has been transferred to Pentecost Sunday. Bearing all that in mind, the blessing of water is omitted. Our holy fonts are empty, so there isn't water to be blessed. And then, so the plan is that immediately after the homily is done, that the presider will go directly to number 55 of the Roman Missal to do the renewal of baptismal promises, just with the sprinkling rites being omitted. Other than that, the remainder of the liturgy remains unchanged. I, if you have any other questions or things that need to be clarified, you can always get in touch with me. I'd be happy to talk with you. If you're watching this video on YouTube and you need to know my email addresses, just look in the description of the video and I'll have it posted there. In the meantime, please make sure that you check out the Diocese liturgy resource page for other information that's being presented, and also some resources for you for continuing your life of prayer and outreach to the people that you minister to. So if you have any concerns, any questions, anything else that you want to talk about, just let me know. In the meantime, I wish you well in preparing for these liturgies, for this holy time in our church, and I wish you many blessings in listening to where God is present in these difficult times, and how we can be that voice of God and that voice of hope, proclaiming that resurrection, even when we might feel like we're still stuck in our own tombs, being asked to remain sheltering in place. So please know that my prayers are with you, and that just as I will be celebrating this Holy Week in prayer with each of you, that I ask also for your blessings, not only and your prayers, not only for me, but for all those who seek to continue serving the people of God in these remarkable times. So with that, take good care, and please know that I'm at your service if anything else comes up. Okay, God bless.